MAHITO, the Curse of Humanity. This charismatic patch-faced curse was created from negative energy humans feel towards each other. This includes things like fear, hatred, envy, and anger. All the things people try to control, but seeing as most regular people can't help feeling these things, and also can't handle the cursed energy that's made as a result, MAHITO was bound to come into being sooner or later. His name implies he's the true human, after all. As the youngest of the special grade curses we meet, working alongside Geto, MAHITO is undeniably adaptable, childish, and driven by his desire for chaos and deadly confrontations. But let's dive into his history a bit more thoroughly. Right after Yuji returns from the dead, he's sent on an unusual mission with Nanami Kento. At the same time, MAHITO befriends Junpei as a means to use him and sow seeds of hatred within him, but also seeming to specifically want to mess with Yuji, since he's not allowed to kill him. Considering that MAHITO isn't the planning type, this idea likely only popped up after he realized how close Yuji and Junpei were getting. Let's step back for a second though. The only reason MAHITO was able to sink his claws into Junpei was because of the bullies in his school, and how no one else paid attention to the abuse he was going through. MAHITO offered Junpei a means to fight back. At the same time, Junpei's anger and isolation became more fuel for both MAHITO's cursed power and his entertainment. The next time we see the cursed spirit, he fights Nanami when they encounter each other in the sewers, and he touches Nanami's soul briefly, causing an injury that also works as foreshadowing for later in the arc. In fact, Nanami's curse technique might be strong against most curses, but not MAHITO. Whether you want to see this as the worst of humanity going against the best of humanity, and that's why it's such a bad matchup. Nanami wins the fight, but at the cost of a deep fear being planted and a nasty abdomen wound. Actually, MAHITO might have turned their fight into a draw. The ease with which he manipulates his own soul, saving himself from desperate situations, is astounding. MAHITO heals up quickly and returns to grooming Junpei in the worst way. But we can't give him all the credit, since it's fake Geto that provides the finger to cause the real chaos. As we know, Junpei fights Yuji in a desperate cry for help when he's coming around to Jujutsu High, and the idea of having friends who can see curses. That's when MAHITO makes his move. He shows his true colors as a special grade curse and transforms him right in front of Yuji's eyes. Technically, this was meant to force Yuji into making a vow with Sukuna so the curses could all work together to take down the world. But what happened is Sukuna already made a pact with Yuji that he'd forgotten about, which left MAHITO laughing at the situation. Another thing came into play then. The fact that Yuji was one of the only people who could hurt MAHITO's soul directly. They fought, with Yuji completely enraged and MAHITO laughing and changing shape and weaponry with his limbs. But when MAHITO put Yuji in a tight spot, touching his soul to attack him, he accidentally touched Sukuna within him. All he got was a warning this time. We know that MAHITO likes to toy with his food anyway. Too bad for Scarface though. Nanami joined the fight and helped Yuji to bombard MAHITO with attacks left and right. Knowing he was getting closer to expiring, he suddenly awakened something that Nanami himself hadn't attained. Domain expansion. It's called self-embodiment of perfection. This domain is similar to Jogo or Gojo's in terms of the guaranteed attack it offers the user. For MAHITO, that means that instead of needing to touch his enemy directly, being inside the domain guarantees their soul is attacked. There aren't many people who could overcome something that dangerous. With that in mind, Yuji's pushed out of the newly formed domain, and Nanami's kept in since he's vulnerable to the effect. After a flashback and death flags, Yuji breaks into MAHITO's domain to stop the sure hit effect of it, but he inadvertently triggers Sukuna's defense too. The warning, despite this situation not being MAHITO's fault, wasn't heeded, and MAHITO struck violently. At this point, MAHITO has used up most of his cursed energy and can't fight back well, so he escapes to the sewers. Despite Nanami's quick reaction and sending Ino after him, he gets away without a problem. This is also the moment he decides to destroy Yuji's soul, rather than his body. In other words, Sukuna's too strong to fight, so MAHITO can take away everything that matters to Yuji instead. Going forward during the sister exchange arc, MAHITO returns, but as more of a background character, or rather an assassin with the goal of collecting cursed wounds and a finger from Jujutsu High, while his allies do more visible work. Despite seeming carefree and unaffected by most things, Mahito is ready to strike when Haruta Shigemo hints at wanting to kill off Hanami. This is also an interesting moment considering Haruta and Mahito have similarly playful personalities. Later on, after Mahito collected the items their gang needed to put the plan in motion, he's taking it easy again. I gotta say, he's got a chill existence. Afterwards, without a hint of remorse, he reincarnates the youngest cursed womb, Kechizu, into a helpless man's body. Later, he goes about the day as if nothing is going on. He's even seen playing games with fake Geto and Choso. When the latter snaps one of the pieces for the game board, Mahito takes it harder than you'd expect, funnily enough, but he certainly doesn't seem to care that the death wounds he collected were taken out so fast. Instead, he seems gleeful at the thought of not only facing a stronger Yuji, but seeing him face the aftermath of ending something that was partly human. Just like when Mahito unleashes his transfigured creations. Right before the big start to one of the deadliest arcs in Jujutsu Kaisen, Mahito had to follow through with a binding vow he had with Kokichi Muda, aka Mekamaru. That is, Mahito had to help the man live freely again, since he provided valuable and secret information to the special grade curses. After the deal was done, Mahito wasted no time going after him in his massive mech robot. Not only did Mahito force Mekamaru to use up his 17 years worth of cursed energy in the fight, but he purposely pretended to lose at certain moments to get his guard down. Mahito's domain makes another appearance, and this time it's more sophisticated than it was during his fight against Yuji and Nanami. Eventually, Mahito pierces Mekamaru through his battle bot and leaves with a hop in his step. Fake Geto tells him not to risk himself like that. Not knowing that it was all a game to Mahito, every moment was planned for. The youngest special grade curse is already growing up, in his own way. Going forward into the Shibuya incident arc, this is when Mahito is fully let loose and becomes the strongest version of himself. After a long talk with fake Geto and friends, it's decided they absolutely need to wear Gojo down, at least psychologically. And for that, Mahito's curse technique is going to play a big role since he can target many people quickly. It wouldn't be Mahito if he didn't make a buttload of transfigured monsters attack people. So of course, he makes a train full of them and sends them off to where Jogo and Choso are playing tag with Gojo. Having never met the blindfolded sorcerer, Mahito can't help but test Gojo's infinity barrier, which blocks him as expected. Less predictable, though, is how Mahito floats away from Gojo's attempt at striking back. Either the strongest user wasn't really trying, or Mahito has some tricks that work against him. Regardless, his sneaky escape allows him to team up with Choso and slaughter dozens of humans in front of Gojo, and gets him a first-class ticket to Infinite Void for 0.2 seconds. Lucky for him, Fake Geto's plan works, and Gojo's sealed, because Mahito was still stuck in a catatonic state afterwards. This is because 6 months worth of information comes pouring into his brain. After a brief discussion with the brain in Geto's body about the soul versus the body, he makes his way to the other Jujutsu sorcerers for some sadistic fun. Unfortunately for us, his first major victim turns out to be Nanami, who he noticed was already weakened by both Dagon's domain and Jogo's unimaginably hot flames. While looking Yuji in the eyes, he splatters Nanami as a way to break Yuji's spirit since he can't destroy his body directly. Yuji goes after him with a rage beyond what he felt after Junpei, but Mahito shows off 2 new techniques: Soul Multiplicity and Body Repel. The first one allows him to combine his transfigured people and make them stronger, while Body Repel forces those modified souls that clash to become extremely powerful for a brief time. You know, more of Mahito's horror-esque tactics. And let's not forget the double of himself he had strategically sent elsewhere to ensure Yuji's mental breakdown. You just gotta love how cunning he is. As expected, Yuji continues to fight against the main body, and Nobara faces the weaker double with not much trouble. Mahito even admits that Nobara is another natural enemy for damaging his soul. In a masterful play, Mahito switches them and causes Nobara to be fatally wounded through his childish running around. So far, it looks like this was the end for her, along with Yuji's sanity. Just as planned, Mahito has the upper hand, having accomplished all the pain he wanted on Yuji's mental state. That's when Mahito starts to chip away at him with his more advanced techniques. This includes Black Flash, which we'd only seen the good guys use before, Like Nanami and Todo explained, it just means Mahito had reached a new level of focus and understanding of cursed energy. After some taunting and a brutal beatdown, Todo shows up again and they tag team Mahito. But this just helps him to grow and to even enhance his cursed energy further through this difficult battle. The same way he was able to expand a domain while facing Yuji and Nanami in the past. Mahito is even beyond 100% of his capabilities. This explains why he can create polymorphic soul isomers and change his own shape more drastically without losing power. In case it's not clear, the isomers are transfigured humans that are more stable and capable of being combined to create a longer lasting threat. This cheerful sadist even copies Gojo's 0.2 second domain against them, so he won't get backlash from Sukuna's soul within Yuji. It's not enough to kill them, but it gets the job done against Todo's technique that he cuts down, along with transfiguring his hand. But why did the locket distract Mahito? Did the fact that he was created from humans leave him a hint of attachment in a weird way? I guess it doesn't matter, he's with the curses. His ultimate form, instant spirit body of distorted killing, is evident of that, since he loses any human traits. But the massive boost in defense and strength comes at a cost. Mahito loses steam from fighting long against high-level opponents, so he tries to bait Yuji into being countered, the way that he did with Mekamaru, but he doesn't expect Divergent Fist to strike him. He's also fooled by Todo pretending that he can still clap with only one hand. He's at the end of his rope, which means Mahito flees and comes across fake Geto, who he mistakenly thinks that he can take down to power himself up once more. Before Shibuya, Mahito figured out what Geto's end goal for him was. As someone born of the darkest parts of humanity, he could tell that the sorcerer was devious, but I guess the thrilling fights he provided were enough for Mahito to go on a doomed path. In the end, Mahito's taken through curse manipulation and turned into an orb, used as a way to trigger the culling game Fake Geto had planned. Mahito ended up a pawn for an ancient curse user. It's fitting, considering how much he toyed with Jujutsu users during his life. And that's the end of him. Actually, no it's not. In the very final chapter, Mahito's still loitering around in between spaces in the afterlife. Sukuna meets him there after losing to Yuji, at least remembering who he is despite their short encounter. Mahito points out how he knew all along that Sukuna wasn't the purely evil, uncaring monster that he pretended to be, and actually was lashing out against those who scorned or mistreated him while alive. As a curse born of humans, it wouldn't be hard for him to figure that out. Remember, he represents all the negative aspects of people. So Sukuna was trying to become a full curse, but never would have reached it despite that. When it's all said and done, Sukuna decided to take a different path, should he get another chance. And for someone who's purely chaotic like Mahito, that's a garbage response. Not only is he disappointed, but he's left completely alone in the darkness with his desire for endless destruction. As he points out, he's the only unruly child left, which makes it sound like even all the other special grade curses have moved on to better things. Does that mean, in the end, Mahito was the only truly villainous character of the series? Even after losing and dying, he refuses to change. Or maybe that's commentary on the darkness within us all? But that's it for Mahito's story. If you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.